Hello, my name is Protal, and today I'm going to be running the Talos Principle Reawakened, all campaigns. This is a really cool opportunity because the last time that the original Talos was ran at GDQ was 5 years ago now, at 2020 by Azure. And this is last year, Talos 2 was ran, but they patched a lot of that stuff, and this is just way more. I don't want to say involved, but I really like the techniques in this game, and it's not this time we're not going to be using photo mode. We're going to be doing a lot more movement stuff, a lot more intricate tricks. So I'm going to introduce my commentators now. Whichever one would you like to go first?
I will go first. Hi, I'm Gelly. I commentated Talos 20. No, I commentated Talos 2 back in 2024, and I am a primarily Talos runner, so this is my bread and butter.
Amazing. And I'm Bobby Berm. I am also a runner of this game. I primarily did Talos 2, and I was diving back into the original Talos game after the second one came out. So I'm really excited that we get to show you all new content today. This has never been seen on any stage, and this game just recently released as soon as, a month, I think like a month ago now. So super excited to be here and excited to be back on the commentary couch.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
I guess I'll start a countdown. Time starts when I click skip. It's in Chinese, but that says skip. 3, 2, 1.
All right. Good luck.
So we will be starting with Talos 1 here, the original Talos Principle campaign. The ending that we'll be going for is Eternalize, which is meant to be gathering all of the sigils, which we will decidedly not be doing. So first we'll be going through this tutorial here, almost intended. But all we need to do is gather enough sigils in order to unlock the A area. We are currently in A1. There's an A hub, a B hub, and a C hub. And then there's a tower that's above it. So basically, we're just looking to get out of here because the moment that we get out, we'll basically be able to complete the game. With Talos 1 in particular, this is basically all the same maps, but with different physics. All of this parkour is a lot more precise than it used to be, in part because a lot of these wall climbs are slippery. Like a lot of this physics is slippery. You may be noticing that he's actually snapping on top of these walls, which makes things a little bit easier. He's got a rewind at the moment. Rewind capabilities were added in this remaster of the Talos Principle. Essentially, for any puzzle, if you mess up or you die or something along those lines, you can rewind to the past 4 seconds, 8 seconds, whatever. You can rewind back. Because we are speedrunners, we have turned off all the animations and stuff like that, so it pretty much instantly snaps back, which is a little bit jarring. So anytime that you see him going back to a position that he was previously at, that's how you can tell. However, you only have access to rewind once you are in a puzzle or you have convinced the game that you are in a puzzle. So at any point, if he's just jumping into a puzzle from outside, no rewind capability, so it's not entirely breaking.
Yeah. Also allows for a lot of these skips to get like obviously like multiple tries at like some really tough skips that you'll see throughout the run. So it's really exciting to be able to quickly just go back and redo some of those.
Mm-hmm. And so here's the game about to end. So we're standing on the edge of the A elevator here. This collision does not exist in the original game, but it does exist in the sequel, or not even the sequel, just the remaster, and this is good enough to end the game. So because of the structure of the game, it just so happens that the ending, Eternalize, is always loaded in at the end of C hub. So what he's going to do is he's going to walk into the corner of this elevator, clip all the way through from A hub down to B. He's going to escape through B down to C, and then he's going to walk into the back of C where there's normally a golden door that prevents you from getting in, but doors are nothing if you're out of bounds. And that will be
just like that.
Internalize ending. He's got to hit a button on a computer, but that'll be pretty much it for the first campaign. So good demonstration of what we'll be working with today. Just because they remastered it doesn't necessarily mean everything's been patched out, especially if you've got parkour like that in your pocket. And the first campaign is done.
And that's time. Just kidding.
It's not quite time, but it will contribute probably the least to the 30 minutes that these campaigns will take. Next, we'll be moving on to Road to Gehenna, which was a DLC that was introduced back when the game came out. I think it came out like a year or two after the game. The entire story is that you are Uriel, one of the angels that is meant to save a bunch of souls that Elohim banished to this realm because they're cringe and write fanfics or something like that. Unlike in the original game, where all of the endings that exist are basically loaded in and you can jump into them provided that you can get to them. In this game, the ending is locked behind a terminal, which is only fully accessible once you uncork all of the robots, which there's 17 of them that exist in the 4 different levels. So unlike the previous one where we just needed to get to from point A to point B to point Eternalize at the very end, he's actually going to have to free all of these robots, which is going to involve flipping 17 different switches. That's not to say that this is necessarily any less brief. It just means that there's a lot more navigating that we'll be having to do here. So for example, this is going to be the hardest trick probably in Gehenna here, is this bit of parkour here. He's going to climb over, jump over this rock, and land on the wall. He did it first try. All
Nice.
Right.
Really nice job.
That's very good. No, that's an incredibly hard trick. The parkour has not been made any easier with a remastering. But from here, he's going to navigate these sand dunes out to Haircut, which is the one of the levels that I still remember the name of, but it's fine. I'll memorize them next time. We'll be navigating the Haircut, and from the back, it just so happens this is convenient slippery geometry to pull the lever and go. From here, we'll be diverting to the right here. This puzzle is about to be as solved as intended as you're going to get in a speedrunning context. Something to note is that in this game, there are guided jumps. Essentially, whenever you're standing on a hexahedron, the game gives you little footprints that indicate where you are intended to jump when you jump, and you're basically forced to go that direction if you press jump at any point. In this game, they've introduced something called guided jump suppression, which is a hotkey that you can press to make that go away. If he hadn't done that on that jump previously, he would have never been able to make that jump across because the game would have demanded that he jump down to the floor below. So that'll be an important technique that we'll mention every time that comes up. And then finally, we'll be doing the crater, which is a very simple one. You just slip in here and pull the lever, and that's
nice.
So that'll be it for Worlds 2, which we're starting with for no other good reason than it happens to be the closest. So from spawn, he just runs to here, and he's got to hit all these worlds anyway, so might as well hit the one that's closest. From here, he's going to be doing some corner cutting to make the hub a little bit faster to traverse every time. So unlike in the original Talos, where, like, you know, if you had died, you'd be able to rewind. To the best of my knowledge, if you were to fall off the edge there, you don't have the ability to rewind. So you'd be reset to somewhere unpleasant, but or at least somewhere that would take longer. We'll be moving on to World 3 here. World 3, we're going to be doing the first of one of only a few jammer sneaks in here. This is actually a technique that we found in Talos 2 that's kind of based on a technique from Talos 1. The idea being that you're not supposed to be able to grab jammers through barriers because that would break puzzles, right? You're supposed to have things sort of cordoned off in their own sections, and so grabbing a jammer through a barrier is supposed to be verklempt. But in this particular example, you can actually trick the game into not recognizing that it's on the other side by having your raycast through a wall instead of a barrier. He just climbed a ladder with an item. I'll explain that later when we'll get to another campaign, but to make it very brief, it's a frame-perfect trick that involves climbing a ladder with an item. But in the meantime...
One thing of note with those gates is that you don't always actually have to like see the item in between. But in Talos 2, we found that there were a lot of like holes in the gates, so you could literally see the item in between, which I thought was really funny. So not always required, but it was really funny.
It's actually fascinating. The way that they remastered this game is they did a lot of essentially asset re-importing, where they basically took these maps and they upgraded all the assets and stuff, so everything's still in place as it ever was. So unlike in the original game, like in the original game where those holes never existed, pretty much the exact same thing applies here. Those holes are almost entirely gone, and you have to rely on walls. This strategy is just jumping over a fence. BFF is very funny because that jump is more precise in the original game than it is in this game. It just happens to be a lot easier because they changed the rocks, and we're not going to pass that up easy peasy. From here, we'll be going to World 4, where we'll be probably moving to actually the hardest strat. I like saying things are the hardest strat for no good reason, but press and jam in particular is going to be hard parkour. Maybe he'll prove me wrong and he'll get it first try, but essentially we're going to be navigating these walls, jumping from wall to wall to wall. And while you do have access to rewinding has a minimum length time of 4 seconds, which happens to be really inconvenient because if you're rewound to the middle of a jump, you just fall down. So each one of these are kind of tense in how he's going to navigate it, especially with the last one being as precise as it is. So give him a little bit. Thankfully, he can use these intermediary walls to get from the other side. And then this one is hard. He got it first try.
Nice. Nice job.
No problem there whatsoever. Unlike in some of the other levels where it's more convenient to navigate to some of the worlds, in this one, it just so happens that they're so far apart that you basically have to leave a level, reset checkpoint, and then move on to the next one. Just a minor difference in the world routing here. He'll be doing a little bit of parkour to be getting past one of the gates, and then very conveniently, the guided jump that we so maligned before is incredibly important to get us past the second one. So by grabbing a cube and going past that one, you can actually get a guided jump, which would be normally impossible. You can't actually make that jump without it being a guided jump, so there's pros and cons to it. From here, this solution is actually very easy. It just requires one jammer sneak and a little bit of intrigue there. You can actually use the jammer to jam one of the barriers and sit on the pressure plate for the other one, and that's air delivery done. And then the final puzzle that he has to execute is colliding beams. Very funny enough, he's going to slide at the end of this because if you weren't able to slide like you are in the original game, you wouldn't be able to make it to an Easter egg. There's like a little island of bunnies that exists there. So in the original game, you slid a lot whenever you would land off of a fan. In this game, you don't, but they had to re-add the sliding back in because otherwise you wouldn't be able to make it there. So we actually get to use that as a little bit of speed tech from the original game, basically. But then from here, you can just parkour in from the outside, and that'll be it for colliding beams.
I got it ate my jump on that one.
Oh, right, the eating jump thing. Yeah, let's talk about that. So in the original game, anytime there was a slight difference in elevation and you essentially stub your toe on that elevation, if you jump at the right time, you would get something called a bump jump, which is a jump that is increased in height the lower your FPS is. It's very strange. But essentially, you would be able to play at 15 FPS and by using a slight lip, be able to make very high jumps. In this game, they've done the exact opposite. If you stub your toe and you try to jump, your jump is completely canceled and you're stuck to whatever surface you were attempting to aim for. So that's something that you have to work with the parkour here. These leprechaun parts, which, by the way, very obviously, this is part of a leprechaun, they're very strange. The physics don't exist, but the collision still does. So you are able to use these in order to climb certain walls, and if you are in third person, you can place them in places where they wouldn't normally exist. Like in the original game, they would fall down or something. So that's why he flipped to third person for no other reason than there's precise positioning on not only the fact that they don't fall down, but like in third person, you can place them in places that you would normally expect.
I don't know, man. Shout out to third person. It's the best mode. It's the best way to play.
He's technically right, unfortunately. The worst kind of right. It's in third person you can grab things from slightly further away, and your ability to place things is slightly more flexible, but it comes at the incredible cost of playing in third person. So it's a great hardship. This strategy is fascinating because that strategy exists in the original game as well. That rock is just at the right elevation for you to be able to pull that off. I don't think you are definitely not normally intended to be able to grab that. But in the meantime, we'll be getting so close so far from the back. This is normally intended for an Easter egg that exists in this little pot over here, but like with a little bit more parkour, you can simply grab that and then rewind back. That's, again, why the rewind is so crucial. Anytime that we are able to enter a puzzle and then leave it and still retain the rewind, it's for the better. And then finally, we can use this cube. Oh, very nice.
Nice.
That jump there is actually quite precise for no good reason. It's partially down to the fact that the collision is not normally standable. But then from here, we've got a little bit of an intermission. Unlike the previous games, or unlike Talos and ITB, which we'll be talking about, In this game, this terminal sequence is very long. Gehenna is entirely centered around it's terminal centric. It's all about talking through terminal consoles. So all of what we're going to be seeing here is a lot of dialogue and interaction and stuff like that.
And speaking
So,
of which, that's probably a good point to bring up why we play in Chinese, actually.
very good, yes. The scrolling of these little text characters is it's like one character per frame or time unit or something along those lines. So it is imperative that you have the least characters to have the game go through. So that's the entire reason that we're playing in Chinese, is so that the terminals go faster. And that's it for Gehenna, and now we'll be moving on to completely new content. This is DLC called In the Beginning. In the Beginning is made partly by people who made custom maps back in the original Talos 1. So these are people who are much more appraised to our goofiness and silliness. Like, we know some of these people. So a lot of the tricks that we would use in the original Talos and Gehenna, which is basically just super easy parkour, is not available to us. We actually have to work a little bit harder in order to be able to break these puzzles. So for example, we have to use this cube in order to drop it on the edge here and be able to grab the sigil from here. You aren't able to like just be able to jump onto rock walls or anything like that. And they've actually planned out the entire structure of this level in part to avoid you trying to smuggle in items from later.
I was just about to say that. It's like avoiding, like, you can see how far apart the puzzles are between, like, their different sections are from each other. They're, like, so separated, I think, for that reason, partly.
Yeah. An interesting thing to note, which almost kind of never came up, is that these are structured in such a way where like you can't even like from inside one puzzle use a jammer to jam a barrier from another puzzle, which was something that was available in the original game. They plotted this out to be pretty much as anti-cheese as possible, but you know, here we are. This is, to be fair, this is incredibly precise. So for example, standing on the edge of this rock lip and being able to jump with this cube, incredibly tight. He suppresses the guy to jump here to get this sigil, and then because he has rewind capability, it's going to make it a little bit easier for the rest of this. Something that I haven't noticed is that, or something that I haven't noted is that grabbing a sigil is not something that's undone by rewinding. So if you grab a sigil and then rewind, you still have collected the sigil. So that's pretty much the only way that you can do this puzzle. Otherwise, it would be agonizing in order to get that. And then from here, we're going to do some kind of messy parkour in order to smuggle an item across to Daydream, which is infamously difficult if you don't have access to smuggled items. But it just so happens that at the back of this puzzle here, there's an invisible wall that you can drop a cube to get on top of, and then from there scale the puzzle from the back. And that will be it for this section shortly. Just one last
Nice.
He's done. Very good, very good. And then he rewinds to approximately the beginning here in order to
So much distance saved just for running, just based on the rewind mechanic alone.
Yeah. We would normally want to reset checkpoint, but he's going to keep the cube here for one last puzzle, which normally would be done without cube and without rewind. It is possible to do that parkour, but it's so incredibly difficult that it would be a reset fest in order to do this. So, you know, marathon safe strats. Not to say that it's not difficult. It's still hard to do this part. What did
That can happen if I'm not close enough.
That's right. Yeah, some of these guided jumps can get stuck a little bit if you're you're not supposed to be able to do that. You're not supposed to be able to get a guided jump over there. So it's no surprise.
You're not. Whoa.
You make a good point. Yeah, it's not unexpected that sometimes you can get jammed on things in the middle of a jump. Very funny. From here, we'll be doing this Roman area, sort of World 2. We'll be sneaking a jammer out of here to solve or assist in the solving of a lot of these. Again, unlike in the Talos Principle, unlike in Road to Gehenna, where like using a cube could necessarily be the end-all be-all for using parkour, in this game, you have to be a little bit more creative, especially because we're going to be using this jammer to jam a barrier that exists at the top of a tower. I think it's the Citadel is the name of it.
Yeah, something Citadel.
The
Stable Citadel. Stable Citadel.
Yeah, the Stable Citadel. So there's a lot of structures that are, again, very, very intentionally built to be Fort Knoxian in construction. But as long as you can get a jammer in here, this is very precise here. So,
wow,
very nice. First try. He's done it. that's an indicator for what sigil is in the puzzle, something that did not have collision in the original Talos Principle, but in Talos Principle, Reawakened happens to be a standable object and is incredibly useful for any time that you would not normally have access to parkour in. He's going to be doing this, I guess, mostly intended from here on out, though. As long as he has access to this barrier, he can just grab the sigil and go. From here, we'll be doing similar, grabbing the cube out of here. The fan redirection there is very silly. It's something that was present in Talos 2, which is the same engine, which is why I refer to it so often. You couldn't, with precise, well, I wouldn't say precise enough movement, but depending on your FPS, fans grab you either more or less strictly. And some fans are so weak that they don't force you to stay in their slipstream. So for that fan, for example, it is so weak that you can just literally walk onto a wall with it. And then he just does a puzzle with the cube. Of course, when you have access to the parkour, it's very good. This parkour is a lot more difficult. In part, he's going to do a suppressed guided jump here in order to avoid possibly accidentally jumping into the level and getting soft lock or not having the cube with him. And very good. All right. And finally, he's going to be doing asynchrony at the end here, correct?
Yes.
Asynchrony.
I still have that one.
There's one last one, but so asynchrony is quite a puzzle. Normally, you're supposed to pause your recordings in such a way where you set up lasers, but if you have a very precise landing of a jump there, you can land on a cube that's falling, which is a lot easier done in third person, unsurprisingly. Incredibly hard trick. One of the things that you would normally...
I never get that first try.
Never gets a first try. He gets it here. Very good. And then he's going to be doing another one of these climbs. Like I explained before in brief, if you grab an item the same frame that you are climbing with a ladder, you can actually go across the ladder with the item. And it happens to be useful twice in this all campaigns run. It's something that's very difficult to make useful normally because it's more important for us to have access to being able to go stand on top of walls rather than go past walls with items. But, you know, being able to climb a ladder with an item is something that's barred by the game normally, so it's unsurprising that puzzles are built with that expectation in mind. And then finally, we'll be moving on to the desert area here. This is going to be a series of jumps to avoid the solving of this puzzle. Normally, you have to use fans to blow hexahedrons onto 4 pressure plates that are on the middle. I believe the name of the puzzle refers to those pressure plates. But instead, with some pretty precise parkour, you can simply get on the rocks and call it there. We'll be using the jammer to solve some of these puzzles here, not strictly necessary, but again, jamming a barrier is an incredibly powerful ability. And then once we grab this sigil here, we'll be going past to some of these other ones. Interestingly, while I did say that for the most part, using hexahedrons aren't the end-all be-all for parkour breaking. It just so happens that in the interior of this puzzle here, the sand dunes are enough to be able to drop a hex, get on top of the wall, and then do some jumps and call it. Yeah, sometimes your jumps get eaten. The fences here are also slippery, which is a strange consistency to be coming from the Reawakened remaster. Normally, fences in this game...
Oh, sorry, go for it.
Oh, normally fences in this game are like 50-50 as to whether or not they are slippery. And those ones just so conveniently happen to not have solid collision on top of them.
No, I'm just shocked that puzzle even can be solved that way. Like all the other fences are so high. How was that one not inside of the puzzle? How was that one not caught in here?
There's small little lips that you can just barely take advantage of, especially if you have access to a guided here. This puzzle is super fascinating because you are not normally supposed to be able to navigate the back of this with an item, but we use that to our advantage in order to basically become one of the pieces of the puzzle, and you basically take the place of a cube or a connector or what have you. And then the solution to this one is very funny, a day one solution.
Love that.
That fence doesn't have slipperiness, so you can just stand on top of it and let it rise you all the way up. And then we'll be leaving here. The rest of the game is relatively straightforward, all things considered. There's 3 blast doors that exist here that we'll be putting these Tetronimos into, and once you get past all of them, we'll be scaling the tower and calling it time. An interesting thing to note with each of these blast doors is that it doesn't matter how far away you end up being after a reset checkpoint. It always makes sense to reset checkpoint instead of wait for the blast door animation to go. That's how slow these doors end up opening. So, and of course, he's doing these as the optimal solutions with the least amount of rotations to avoid having to rotate, because rotating takes time. And then these stairs, you would think climbing stairs is relatively simple, but because of the asset imports, you have to be careful with how you manage your sprint, lest you accidentally fly over the edge of a barrister. Barrier,
is coming
not a
up.
barrister. Yep, time is coming up when he's
that's
going to
true.
hit enter on this computer up here. And time.
Nice. Great run.
There we go.
What was the time on that?
24 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, you cleared the estimate. Very
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Wow.
Very nice.
Nice job.
All right. Well, yeah, no, that was excellent. Very, very great work. You got a lot of things first try there. And again, it was a nice showcase to see parts of the game that haven't been seen in GDQ in quite a long time, in an engine that we saw kind of recently, and stuff that hasn't made it to stage yet. I'm super excited to see Talos Principle Reawakened make it, especially on such short notice after the game came out, not even a month ago.
I know, very fleshed out speed run, and the fact that like you can play this game and functionally showcase it in a way where we can see the entirety of like the Talos storyline just kind of unfold in one speed run is really, really neat. So this would be awesome to showcase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this run. I really do. I never got into running the original game, but it's on an engine that I'm more familiar with, and it really was just eye-opening from the any percent stuff I was doing with Talos 2. So I really hope to see this run get into GDQ.
Yeah. That'll be it from me. I don't know if you've got anything to say, Bobby.
Nope, that's it for me. Thanks for hearing us out, and hope we can get this in.
Yeah. Brodel?
Yeah. Hope this gets in. Thank you.
That's fair.